Hello. I know you can hear me. Let me just pull this off. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my show, JHC and Friends. I wanted to introduce y'all Gene Williams, founder of Warchant, and I'm so excited to have you on today. For those of you who aren't familiar, warchant.com grew like seriously since the 90s. I didn't even know that's when it was founded, but has been a full force with FSU sports and reporting. And he's just grown this pretty much a platform on multiple platforms, social media, started with a website, and we're going to talk about that story. So thank you so much for coming in person. This is my first time in person, guys, and he could see how much of an amateur I was today with all the setup and everything. So,
Julie, thanks for having this is great. No, this is a lot of fun, and I like talking about this because I'm living the dream life. I've got the job that I've always wanted. I mean, I've done other stuff that I love, but there's nothing like this. It's my Florida State football was always my passion. Went to school here, fell in love with Renegade, Garnet Gold, all the traditions, the teams, Bobby Bowden. So to be able to do this for a living and to see it grow, it's a dream come true.
It's really cool that you started early. And I think anyone who started something online in the 90s have made some level of success. What was it like for you when you first started and nobody was familiar with the web, and even with Tallahassee in general, online, anything is kind of foreign, right?
Yeah.
But now more recently, everyone's starting to get that, the value of it. So you started in the 90s, your day job was being an attorney.
That's right. Yeah, I was a full-time attorney. And this is the beginning of the days of the web. And we had that, the AOL, you have mail. It was those kind of days. We had the dial up, everything's crazy. So initially practicing law here in town, doing fine with it. But I, like I said, I love Florida State, a little bit of a techie head. So we got in, I got into, hey, got to have a web page. How cool is that? And I was one of these nuts who would get recruiting services, and people remember 900 numbers where you get recruiting information, the Osceola magazine, you get this. So I could gather all this information and I could put it on a web page. And I thought that was really cool where other people could see it. So more and more people started visiting. And I'm like, Bobby Bowden, who was the greatest college coach of all time, in my opinion, I was able to go out to practices. He had everything open. So I could literally go out to a practice in the morning, my lunch break or whatever, run out there, run back, put up a couple updates on the web page. And people would read it. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I got 50 people visited today. The next day it was 100. The next, a week later, it's 1,000 people. I'm like, how is this possible?
That was fast.
It's nuts. And then, and I started getting people like, why am I waiting for a newspaper or the Osceola magazine a week later to get this detailed information? So it started out like that and kind of grew on itself. And I tried to balance, having a full-time job as an attorney and doing this. That went on for a while. And then at some point I'm like, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to go in full speed and just give it a shot. I'll keep my bar license up just in case something falls. But it happened. And then, also the other next hurdle was trying to media credentials through Florida State, because I could watch a practice. I could gather information, but I couldn't talk to the coach. I couldn't talk to the players, go to the games, get all the media access. So that was a struggle because a lot of people initially did not know what the internet was. They didn't really understand it. They thought it was a fad. You get your information from print. That's always the way it's been. So I had to battle, Florida State Rob Wilson, who's still there today. And I would sit outside his office and lobby him, just give me a little bit of access. Let me prove myself. So he did eventually give me access to talk to the coaches with the rest of the media after practices, and grew from there. And, Bobby Bowden embraced me. He was great to me. I don't think he really knew exactly what we did at the time, but he was fantastic. And, I owe a lot to him because I don't know too many coaches that would have allowed some internet guy to come in and get full access to his program. So that I owe him for that.
That's awesome. So you eventually got the nickname .com, right? Who named you that? I think you started calling a talk show, right? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Back in the day, the big radio station here in town had Rick Ballou, who's now he's still doing sports radio. He's in Jacksonville now, but he was the guy here, the drive time guy in Tallahassee back in the day. And he was very into recruiting. And that was one of the things, like I said, I love to get all the information on recruiting. So I started really, gathering all this information, the infancy of, it was like a single page on a dial-up thing, but I'd have some information on there. So he would have me on. First, I would call in as a fan and talk about recruiting with him, but then I'd call in and he'd have me on sometimes as a guest, but he just because I was the internet guy. He just referred to me as .com. And then in the advent shortly thereafter, as the pages began to develop a little bit and we got a message forum for fans to interact and I could interact with them, I just took the moniker, the handle .com on there. And it's still to this day, I still have that. We're 25 whatever years later, and that's still my handle.
So one of my friends and team members, Destiny, will pull up those handles once in a while. And so obviously you grew your following. So did you monetize early on? Like, how was that for you? And did you start before you started getting significant, to cover the salary that you probably were having, like a significant salary as an attorney?
Yeah, that's another kind of long story. But yeah, initially, so when I did decide to go full-time, a little bit I did part-time for a while with a different law firm in town. And what happened is back in the day, you were able to, some sites do it now, but you were able to monetize a little bit through advertising. So I was getting some pretty decent revenue through that. And then back then I went with the Rivals.com, which is, we can get into that later, but there's some networks you partner up with. It makes your life easier because then you're more responsible for just dealing with the content, the fun part, not dealing at the time. I'm doing, even then I try to do video, I'm doing audio, I'm doing the technical stuff, I'm doing customer support, I'm writing stories, I was doing everything. So there's a lot on my plate. So anything to help take it off my plate is great. So we did that through Rivals. Initially, we were able to monetize. And then if whatever was 99, 2000, there was an internet crash,
right,
where we were making our amount of money we made off of advertisement went, probably down 90% of what we were making. So all of a sudden I'm like, well, I better get that bar license up to date, make sure all my CLEs, because I'm going back to work. This is not going to work out. But shortly around the end of that stint, Rivals decided to go to a subscription model. They tried that with a subscription model. And all of a sudden I had, within a few weeks, I had several hundred people sign up, willing to pay $10 a month or whatever it was. And it was too late for them. They went under. So there was a lot of crazy things that happened back then with different networks and stuff. But anyway, the concept proved itself that passionate fans are willing, just like a magazine or a newspaper, they're willing to pay to get this information. So that's when I'm going to push this thing a little bit longer and see if it works on a subscription model. And sure enough, we signed up with some other networks. And yes, it did obviously end up working.
Did you learn on your own to do a lot of these things? And then at some point, you probably needed to add team members, right, to maintain this all. You've grown it to about, is it 9 team members now?
Yeah, we have nine full-time members. So yeah, I mean, even back then, initially, I had to do the coding to put the websites together.
You did the
it wasn't, yes, it was.
That's
and
impressive.
It's not even like today where it's all plug and play. They're HTML actually writing it all out, JavaScript and all those kind of things.
No CMSs at the time, right?
No. So that was something that was part of my gig back then. So yeah, I wore a lot of hats back in the day. But yeah. Like I said, so we'd get the good thing. Having FSU here is great because there's obviously we get a lot of student interns initially to help me out. So some great people back in the day, and some of them still to this day. Chris Nee, who works for 247, our biggest competitor, he runs their FSU site now, and he started with me as an intern and then works on for me. And so I got to a point I could pay someone a little bit part-time. And then, it just grew. Then look, one full-timer, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown. Now we have, we can get into it, but we've got all kind of people running video producers and, podcast people. And, we have several content writers. So I'd be able to basically pillage a lot of the talent from in town. I mean, the good and the bad, the newspaper industry, as you know, has kind of gone downhill, but they had all the best people out of them. So Irish O'Fell, who's our managing editor, and he was always, to me, I would read stuff, and he's one of the best there's been writing and managing, and in media's won all kind of media awards. So I tried to hire him several times, and he kept turning me down. And persistence paid off. So eventually I got him to come over to Warchant, and he's been fantastic doing the day-to-day. And Corey Clark, who is the main columnist at the Democrat, and just a really funny, irreverent guy that people love, and he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of the program, which people love. So he's come on, he's added so much. And Aslan Hajavandi, who is one of our, morning podcast hosts and one of our video hosts on there. And he was an intern for me way back in the day, probably 15 years ago. And he went on and had a TV career, radio and all that. I saw him grow and how good he became professionally, brought him in. So it's just been like that little by little by little. We've added more and more people. And you just show Tom Lang, you had that picture up of him a minute ago. And he's been a guy that's been a co-host with Jeff Cameron on the Jeff Cameron Show. If you're in Tallahassee, you know what the Jeff Cameron Show is. And he's a talented writer, producer, co-host. I mean, he wears so many hats and he's so good. So brought him on. And then we got Jeff to come on too with us too. So we're part of that whole multimedia thing here in Tallahassee. So yeah, it's kind of, again, I'm just surprised when I start talking about this, how crazy it is, how much it's grown and all these things we've added to it from just starting out as just nothing 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, no, this is so cool. I love this story. And so, and keeping right now, a biggest struggle for a lot of businesses is retention, like talent retention. And you got all these companies competing and trying to poach, right? So how have you managed to build this team culture? And, you know, obviously it's great content. It's fun content. You guys have a lot of fun putting this together. And just because I always think about so many Christians all at once, you primarily wrote, and then it eventually went into video and podcasting, right? So then you had a loyal fan base that loved to read. Now everyone loves to watch videos, right? So all of that said, how have you managed to keep your team members? And, you know, now that you have so many different channels in play, like how do you manage it all?
Yeah, there's a lot to that. But the the retention thing is, I mean, one of the things I've learned early on is when you have someone that's good and talented, you compensate them appropriately. You make sure they're taken care of, and I let them know their value. If you're really good at what you do, I'm going to compensate you, and make sure no one else is going to be able to come in and poach you away, because this is going to be the best. But we have a great work environment. We have great people to work with. I think everybody, they all like each other. That's part of it too. You like each other. It's not the old, you know, corporate type of thing. You're in an office and you have all those little things. So I think people just really enjoy what we do, and I give them the freedom to do what they do so well. My whole thing is, what I've got to the point now, and I'm running the business aspect of it. My job is to get out of their way. They're really good in their lane. If you're a video guy, I want you to be able to do your shows and do it the way you want to do it. And all the minutia, the stuff that bothers you, you know, the customer service things, the whatever technical problems, I'm going to take care of all that. Your travel issues, all that, we've got that covered. So they're able to do what they do best, and then we compensate them well. I mean, that's it. If you're running a business and you got someone who's really good, that's number one advice. Take care of those people. And then your other question was just about I think one thing I've done well is be very nimble in what goes on, because what's the iterations of media, it seems like every 6 months it changes. There's something different, and you better be able to change with it, because I mean, it happened to newspapers. They didn't adjust. A lot of them are out of business, so they've gone to weeklies. So yeah, I was trying to do video back before when we had dial-up, and it wasn't even really that feasible. People, because they sit there trying to download, but I mean, the compression is so whatever. I get and all that. Yeah, it's a really bad quality. It took forever to upload it. We didn't have the editing we have now, so it was a nightmare. But I was trying to do it, and trying to do audio. We would do audio stuff, but still, it's pre-podcast era, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I was always wanting to do those things, and then when the technology made it possible, and the bandwidth got enough where people could do this stuff, I was ready to pounce on it. And social media, I don't, I to this day, I don't really generally like social media, but you have to do it.
Right.
Especially
with content.
Yeah. I mean, so we've had people, all of our staff are fully trained on doing those things and what you can and can't do. And part of the thing, one of the reasons I don't like it, because you're afraid you'd say the wrong word somewhere, and it's going to blow up when you're a big enough business. They're looking to get you. So, but I mean, so we've just been very nimble. I'm always trying to stay on top of stuff, and we've got staff. You know, Tom Lang's really good. We have weekly meetings with him, and we kind of go through the lay of the land, what's going on here or there, what can we do to improve things in terms of, podcast, video, all those kind of things. You use StreamYard. That's when, about a year or so ago, we adapted and went to StreamYard because it's allowed us to change. I mean, what we did just pre-COVID in video, what we do now it's 100% different.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to make those changes and be we were the first really to market with YouTube, and we've got I think we've got the biggest following in our network on free,
like
for YouTube.
30,000 plus YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, and I think we've got the most in terms of podcast, probably subscribers for a podcast and stuff. So I mean but we got on those things early, and that's the thing. You got to be first to market. That's really important.
And that's really neat. I mean, did you see yourself running a business like ever before? Is this something that you thought maybe one day, or did it kind of accidentally happen because you're passionate about telling these stories, related to FSU football?
Yeah, I'm not about running my own small business. I did get a finance degree from Florida State. So, I mean, I have a business background, got my law degree at Stetson. So I had some background for it, but no, I mean, I just followed my passion. That's the thing. It's not even like running the business. It's just my passion, and it fell into eventually happening that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not complaining. It just is, it fell into that, and I'm thrilled. There's nothing better than being your own boss, because I worked at a law firm and it was fine and all that stuff. But I mean, having complete control over your destiny, who you hire, what you do, how much you pay, everything else. I mean, it's great to have that control in your life. So no, I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I didn't mention this, but we bumped into each other, and it's funny. We're like the wandering nomads. I will see him sometimes at different coffee shops at different, and then I finally went up to him. I was like, I see you a lot at different coffee shops. Like, what do you do? I was really curious, and he said, then you said, oh yeah, I started Warchant. I was like, what? You're the best. Because I never even saw that article about it. Anyways, I was like, oh my goodness, it's funny. I see all that content. I love studying businesses, and especially ones that made success here in Tallahassee. So like, how have you managed it with your family life and all of that? An online business is pretty demanding.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, early on, my wife was very patient with it. First, she thought I was crazy giving up practicing law to go run the internet site. Like, what are you doing? So she said, just keep your law license up. You'll be good. You'll just go back to practicing law, get it out of your system. So
she thought it was like, submit my prices.
Exactly. Yeah. No, she probably did, but I would be, I'm up till 2-3 in the morning cranking out stuff, and it worked weird hours, and we had obviously with kids then and juggling all that. When I was a one-man show and I had to go to every practice, go to every road game, and I wasn't around a whole lot. So, bless her for dealing with all that nonsense at the time. So, I mean, you have to have that part of your thing. It's like anybody, I think, doing this at a certain level has to have that support from a loved one. And she did great doing with that. So, I mean, that was part of it too. And just, jumping through all these things, but I love these challenges, and especially getting over them. Let's say getting the credentials, getting, bringing the right people and understanding social media and how you need to leverage that to help your business succeed. And marketing and all the other things going into it. So I find that stuff, I do love it. I mean, I got my finance degree because I do love business, and I love a lot of those aspects. So I didn't know it would, I was going to do it in this aspect, but who knows? You never know when you get your degree really what ultimately you're going to do. So it's worked out really well for me.
I mean, the fact that you were willing to learn a lot of HTML and also invest in high level production, like you mentioned, pre-COVID, you had a studio. And now, like StreamYard, we can just hop on.
That's I mean, we had this huge back, and we actually built above our garage a studio up there built a broadcast desk, had invested in the those big like TV. You see like the TV stations have those big mammoth cameras. Back then, we had a couple of them because we had one got film practices and stuff. It's not like now with your phone you can do it. You had to have actual real cameras back 10 years ago. So we invested in all that stuff. And then just overnight with COVID and with Zoom and StreamYard and those things, it just blew up. And my staff loves it. And that's one of the things too, and make life easy on them. They can be at their home and we give them a little backdrop or help them set up their thing, buy them the right equipment, and they can fire it up in their living room and they're good to go. And the quality is so great now.
And you mentioned it wasn't for nothing, though, at least all that production, you've been able to give access to a high school. Right, and donate that.
The broadcast desk we had, which was kind of sad to see it go because we had some great times there. Instead of we were just going to like take it apart, trash it, we were able to get it in like 2 pieces, and then my wife was able to contact our daughters went to Florida High, which is in Southwood, right down the street from us. So we have a good relationship with them. I'm like, I knew they did some like classes, and I'm like, so we checked with them, and sure enough, they'd love to have it, be able to teach classes where kids can sit behind a broadcast desk and do things. So I'm glad it didn't die. It's still alive. It's still getting some good use and helping educate the youth for people like, maybe like you someday will have shows and be able to practice on those kind of things.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you, a lot of it's self-taught, but did you sign up for programs to also learn other things? Like, how did you figure out the whole, and just everything, every aspect of growth, which is, advertising or, did you yourself or did you outsource some things? Like how did you manage that? And now there's like a lot of programs where you can sign up that focuses on different platforms.
A lot of trouble, a lot of screw ups. We tried a lot of things. I mean, that's the nice thing about online, that you can do something and it just blows up. Whatever, just not going to do that again. So I tried a lot of stuff online. It didn't work. A lot of things we didn't spend tons and tons of time initially trying to build advertiser sponsorships and just so much time. And you end up making a couple $100 on 1,000 hours of effort, and you're like, but I saw the potential. There's enough people on there that you ought to be able to monetize advertising sponsorships through it. And again, it really was tough to do early on, but then, after a couple of years, maybe you're making a couple $1,000s off of it. You're like, okay, that's starting to get there now. Of course, it's a major between YouTube and all of our sponsors for all of our shows and features. And now it's a major revenue stream for us. But yeah, initially, a lot of it was just making a lot of mistakes and, doing what you do, but it's trial by error. And it's not like now it's great. You just pull up a YouTube video. If you know how to do something, you pull up the YouTube video and it tells you how to do it. But back then I would try, I'd sit there, try a bunch of different codes on things. Well, that looks awful. And that's why I was up till 3 a.m. every night, just tweaking stuff. Like you said, you're a little OCD. I'm a little OCD on these things, but I guess that serves us well on things like that. But a lot of mistakes, just learn from those.
Yeah. And did you, see, now it makes me like, are you potentially interested, because it would be awesome if you did, one of the things I would love to do is gather people who like to create content and learn from experts like you too, because I would love to have that kind of event where it's just focused on how to start and grow. But do you think anyone who's starting now, do you think they still have the chance to do something like that? Like,
but now it's so much easier now. You can set up your own YouTube channel. You can set up your, social media profiles and all this and easily get out there, man. If you have good products, you have a vehicle where you can set up, whatever with a Zoom or whatever, a YouTube right there and get your content out there. I see there's so many of these people that I follow, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a YouTuber. It's just people that just within the last couple of years started up the idea, whether it's exercising or health or sports or whatever. All these people I'm following because it's easy to find them now. So if you're good at what you do, I think it's a great opportunity now more than ever, because like you said, people are digesting their stuff through this. And I will see a YouTube video when I go to work out and I'm pulling up and I'll say, no, this is by CBS or this is ESPN. Right. I don't want to hear them. Yeah. I want to hear the guy who's going to give me the honest truth. Yeah. Or girl's going to give me the honest truth about something, and I will watch their video. Yeah. And if it's a good one, I subscribe and boom, they've got me. And now they're able to monetize and do everything else. So I think this is a great time for people who want to be in media to start up, because the barriers to entry have pretty much disappeared.
Wow. Yeah, I know. And there's so many people giving a lot of free advice and tips and everything.
Well, some not so good.
Yeah.
You got to be discerning.
Well, is there anything else you'd love to touch on? I know, like, it's been over the course of how many years now? That's almost like
25
years.
plus years. Goodness. Yes. I can't believe how long you've been doing this. It's flown by because you love what you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I like we had talked briefly about On3. That's helped kind of lighten the load of everything, and now you can just focus on creating content. Like, how did you find that opportunity?
Yeah. So like I said, since the late 90s, I've always been with a network of rivals. Yeah. Rivals back and forth for a little bit. And the guy who was the initial founders of Rivals back then was named Shannon Terry. And he ended up selling Rivals back a while ago to Yahoo. Got bought by Verizon. Long story there. But anyway, so is that a couple of years ago, he also started up 247, which is another mammoth college sports network. Well, his next iteration was On3. He left them, sold that to CBS, went on to On3, and we've worked together before. I think he's brilliant in what he does, and he's very savvy in this whole thing. Well, nothing against Rivals, but being owned by all these big corporations, they're not very nimble. It's hard to get stuff done. Right. And this was a startup from him, had great investments. I knew this guy knew what he's doing. So it seemed to be the right time to make the change. And he's done some of the things that really that I want to see networks. And he's embraced NIL. If people aren't familiar with that, name, image, and likeness, they become kind of the forefront and doing that kind of thing, which is so important now. People want to talk about why FSU is doing well. It's transfer portal, it's NIL. Right. Yeah. And I think Shannon Terry had the vision that these are going to be really important things going forward in college sports, and really embrace those and provided the technology. So we're seeing that now. It's been very helpful to do that. So that's why a couple of years ago, and we're a little over a year officially being with them, to be able to make that change to On3. And what that does, just so people aren't familiar, so we're with the network, we still own our business, but that allows us to do what we do well, and that's content. They take care of all the technology. they take care of processing all the subscribers. So a lot of the customer support, we still try to do a little on our end to give a personal touch, but they do a lot of the mundane things that, again, I talked about the success for us is staying out of other people's lanes. They help us stay in our lane to be successful, and that's produce intriguing, compelling content for our customers.
I really like the setup of the website. I've visited a few times, and I love how they have the feature of NIL and everything too. So and then I was like, oh, Warchant, just I stumbled on some of the stats and data that they've shared, and there's visibility there. And then of course with Warchant, you got how many visitors do you guys get? I mean, I'm sure this is
what are the numbers? I don't it's hard to say. I mean, we get I know we get over 1 million views or whatever a month on YouTube, probably 1 million plus on the website.
I figured it'd be in the millions.
It's millions for both in terms of views, and I have to go back and look at the unique users. But we've got the most subscribers within On3.
That's awesome.
Which is great. We have the most YouTube, I believe, subscribers and most podcast subscribers. But there's some other great sites in the network too that do a really good job. Another thing I got to say, one thing they do that is so good for us is they've hired some of the best recruiting analysts, and that it's its own industry within an industry within recruiting. I mean, there's so many passionate people that want to know the recruiting and now the transfer portal, what's going on with that. So they've got guys all over the country that do nothing but, go to the camps. They've got contacts with coaches all over the place. They're helping us get that information, because if there's Florida State's recruiting a kid in California, Julie, I like to get on a plane and go out there every time and do that, but it's not realistic. But they have that ability to instantly get that information for us. I mean, that's such a big weight off of our
like even the
obligations.
Research.
And to do that. And then sometimes they'll let us know, hey, suddenly FSU's offered this guy and he's going to be visiting you guys next week. So, I mean, having that on there is such a huge help for us.
Is there anything that you'd like to highlight related to, because as far as NIL goes, because I'm very interested in that too, because there's opportunities that businesses locally can be involved in, and I'm sure maybe national brands. Like, how do you get started? Do you have to contact an agent? Do they already have?
Well, they don't. So that's one of the there's a lot of legislation. If you follow this stuff, and you can go to, they've got a whole online or at NIL business type section at On3. You can get caught up. There's a lot of arguments going on in Congress right now about how to handle this. I do think one of the big things you brought up, I think these kids really need to have agents, just like in the NFL, licensed agents, because I think a lot of them are getting bad advice. There's been kids that I'm not going to name names, that have left Florida State or other schools because they've been told by their, pseudo agent friend or the family or whatever, hey, this school's going to give you a lot more money. There they go there and they find out it's not there. And suddenly they're out in limbo. They don't have a scholarship and they're just floating around. And then a lot of them don't understand the tax consequences. Hey, I'm getting a couple $100,000 for this NIL deal. This is great. Well, they spend it all. Next thing, Uncle Sam is like, where's my cut? They're not being educated in this. So if you have a licensed agent, I think that needs to happen to help these kids out a lot. That's another big thing for Florida State. Battles End. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's the big one that they've done such a tremendous job helping Florida State, secure the kids through NIL. So local businesses can get involved with them. And then the players can help promote your products, that kind of thing. And then that money goes through them to the players. So it's been a really good setup. And it's one of the reasons you get a guy like a Keon Coleman, who is an absolute freak, who had one of the best catches I've ever seen last week. Guys like that, because NIL allows that to happen. And I think it's important that the kids do get compensated. I think it's gotten a little bit too much, and this is going to be worked out in the legislature, too much pay for play and not enough really. You're supposed to be for your name, image, and likeness, not because you're a 5-star recruit and we're going to pay you to come to our school. It's not really supposed to be like that. I think that'll be worked out at the end of the day, but a lot of really interesting stuff with what's going on with NIL right now.
That's cool. Okay. I didn't ask this earlier. What area of law was it business related?
No, it's interesting. I didn't get really necessarily business law, but I got published in the business with Law Review. So it was always my focus was business law, but I ended up getting with a insurance defense firm in town. So I did a lot of insurance defense litigation. It was fun. But I mean, again, in a small town, after a while, it got kind of old because it's the same attorneys, the same judge, the same doctors over and over and over again. So it got to be a little bit
you seem to have like a creative, like you just love learning.
Yes.
And then you like figure things out, entrepreneurial, obviously. And
I'm favorite show Shark Tank, so go figure.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, is there anything else you'd love to include, and how can we help and support your team?
Yeah, I mean, just our subscribers, as we tell people, they're like, they want to know stuff like when you subscribe or you go, subscribe to our YouTube channel or pay, we've got a deal like $1 for a month at warchant.com. And that allows us to hire these great people to invest in the technology to give you better and better coverage. Because that's another thing, I'm always reinvesting in the business. And I always tell my guys, like, do not hesitate to tell me if you see you need this crazy camera or you need whatever. I'm not going to chinch. I just got emails from my guys about traveling for the pit game. I'm going to make sure you guys get there as quickly and easy as possible. It costs a little bit more and you get back so you can write and do your things. So again, just reinvesting in those kind of things. But the subscribers, the reason I'm able to live my dream life and do all the things I do is because we've got such a loyal fans. This is Florida State. It's unbelievable. We're seeing this now.
Yeah.
Just how loyal this fan base is. I mean, in Orlando, if you went to that LSU game at the beginning of the year, that was a Florida State home game.
Yeah.
And it's not like LSU doesn't have a passionate fan base. No,
Right.
we said, no, this is in Florida. We're going. They go to these things. You look at the TV ratings. I know Mike Alford, the athletic director of Florida State, has been kind of on a campaign to get that out there. This is one of the most watched teams in the world, for college sports. It's unbelievable the support they have. So, I mean, it's helped us a lot that this fan base is so incredible.
Yeah.
And I was part of them, for years. I'd go there and, watch obviously Osceola Renegade and fell in love with them. So now those people have made my life possible. I can't thank them enough.
Well, you've got to get a book together at some point. I'm sure it'll do well. But yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time to come in person and join my humble show. I don't have thousands of followers, but it really means a lot.
You'll get there.
I'm glad. I'm glad that we bumped into each other at a coffee shop and to talk about your story. And if you're good with that, then
it's been a lot of fun, Julia. Thanks for having me. I love talking the business stuff. I mean, I love talking Florida State football. People walk to me all the time in a coffee shop, usually, and want to talk Florida State. Oh, I hate to bug you. I'm like, no, that's why I do this, because I love talking about Florida State sports.
I know. Well, I'm gonna have to catch it when you're actually on the show, because I'm seeing all your team members on there. But thanks again. And Destiny, if you don't mind, and I think she did, because I didn't even see like how many times she's flipped through. But thanks so much for hopping on my show. For anyone who catches the recording, we'd love to see comments on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll catch you guys later. And you know how StreamYard ends the stream a couple seconds. Bye. There's a camera. See you guys.